So here we are recording and stuff. And so if you are on Brightspace there, give me a little thumbs up, a little virtual thumbs up is fine, or a shout out in the chat to let me know that you can read your feedback. So that's going to be one of the primary ways that I give you feedback throughout the semester. So I want you to know that just because you see it graded there, that you're not done with it. Please go in there and check. So for example, right now, I mean, a lot of this is just kind of like a, hey, how are you? Nice stuff. Hope you had a good summer type of thing. But in the future, I'm going to make specific recommendations for going over thesis statements, going over problems with transitions, or any of these other things that we're talking about here. I'm going to give you specific feedback that I expect you to kind of follow up on. So that's where you'll find that in all these assignments. So if you go to grammar worksheet number 1 now, go to the next assignment. You can go back either through contents or the modules on the table of contents there to find grammar worksheet number 1. And these should all be graded. So if you have a 10 out of 10 and a thank you, good job in the comment section, then you're good. If you have a 10 out of 10 and you have a thank you plus a comment such as, let's take a closer look at number 17 or number 23 or something along those lines, then I'd like you to do that. That's exactly what I'd like you to do. I'm not going to mark you off because you missed some, but I think there was a mistake there, and I just want to bring it to your attention that it requires a little bit more attention on that particular subject. So you can ask me about those guys if there's something that you clearly just don't understand. I'll be hanging around after class for kind of individual stuff like that. But you can always bring it up like when we're discussing those subjects as well. In class, we just might be done with that particular worksheet. So in this case, I think there were probably only 2 little, like really kind of confusing ones with grammar as far as subject verb agreement goes here. So everybody did pretty well. The other thing is that everybody, is it well or good? Everybody do pretty well or everybody do pretty good? I forget. One thing you can do also is, well, I forgot. So don't do that thing. That second thing that I wanted you to do, just forget about it because it doesn't matter. It wasn't important enough. So let's go to our topic for today, which is, oh yeah, any of these, if you haven't been able to format or submit a Microsoft Word document here, you're going to get a 0 out of 10 on this assignment. This is fixable. You just have to hand in the assignment and I'll give you full credit for it. So there are technological problems. There's somebody who still can't access Brightspace for reasons we can't figure out. One of these people that's not here today, that's going to watch a recording later, is going to join us whenever they can get that figured out. So there's problems. I'm not taking points off for that. But if you see a 0 there, it's because we need to do something before the end of the semester for that particular assignment. So we need to either work out how it is that you're going to update your version of Microsoft Word, or you're going to figure out some way to get an MP4 formatted so that you can submit it properly into the, well, not properly is the wrong word, so that you can effectively submit it to the learning management system, which is a little like a 55 Buick. Like it still sort of runs, but it's temperamental. So let's move on to the topic of the day. Okay, now I'm going to screen share. And as soon as I click that button there. Okay. Now let's go to, yes, this is correct. Let's come back to our table of contents. We'll take a look here, see what's going on. All right, the screen sharing working? Everything good there? Somebody give me a verbal shout out since I can't see you.
Yeah.
Sweet. So how different does it look from my perspective? You're seeing the teacher's perspective, the professor's version of this, and then the student version is a little bit different. Are the layouts pretty much the same though? Is that difficult to follow? Same or different? Give me a shout out verbally.
Same. It's all good.
Okay, perfect.
Pretty much the same.
Okay, I think when I open things up into individual assignments and you see kind of more options there for grading and stuff like that, that'll be the only difference. But as long as you see pretty much what I see here, you'll be able to navigate everything with no problem. Can I get a verbal affirmation that everybody at least clicked this link and took at least 60 seconds to just kind of look at Anki? Anybody? Anybody do it?
I looked at it, I didn't use it.
Okay. For those of you that may have looked at it but not used it, do you have some sort of flashcard system?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Perfect. Because there's two important items of wisdom that I can impart on you that have changed my professional life and made things better. The first one is massive, massive, massive amounts of coffee. The second one is Anki. And it's just absolutely spectacular. Flashcards in general are good, and we've all used them since we were children, right? But this algorithm they have for getting stuff, you know, for covering lots and lots of material in an effective, time-efficient sort of way, so that you get all of that information into your long-term memory banks, it just cuts down the time that you have to do it. If you were previously studying and it took you 5 hours to memorize all this stuff for your math or your chemistry or your engineering class, you could probably do it spread out over a couple of days in about 2 or 3 instead of 5 altogether. So it's so effective. And I was kidding about the coffee. It's actually checklists. Do you guys use checklists on, for anybody that's in maybe a transportation major or something like that? Are there checklists still on the ships?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of standard issue. I read this kind of like efficiency expert book a little while back from a former naval pilot, and you know it was all about the checklists. And it was basically like, I read this book. It was probably 120 pages, and the guy's now a business consultant after having a career as a fighter pilot. And I think it comes down to the whole point of the book was if you make checklists, you won't forget stuff. And now that I'm making them and I'm making daily checklists of things that I want to go over, skills that I want to practice 5 minutes on this and 10 minutes on that. And I run through my checklist, way more efficient. So I would encourage you also to use the systems that you learn when you're on the ship, like the checklist system, and bring that into your regular everyday study schedule, your life, your workout schedule, the whole thing. And I make long checklists for different things that I have spread out over the week, so that I know that I'm going to hit one thing at least twice that week. I'm going to put it on Tuesday and I'll put it on Friday maybe, and I can plan out the week that way. And you can basically get a lot of stuff done. And then those things of like, well, I used to practice the guitar, but I just haven't practiced for a while. If you put it on your checklist and you know you have a specific exercise to do every once in a while, then you're going to practice that particular scale on Monday and something else on Tuesday, and just go through it as part of your routine, like you're just working out, and you just get to it, you get it all done without wasting any of that interim time. So I'll get off the soapbox now and get to our Grammar Essentials PowerPoint. Couple of additions to the Grammar Essentials PowerPoint. Come on. There we go. Bandwidth. There we go. Bandwidth. So if we go down to, I want to figure out, want to retouch just a couple of things over here. Our favorite friend, our linking verb, to be, has a little bit more to be said about it. And today we're going to say one of those things. A linking verb can also not, it doesn't just perform the action of, or perform the function rather, not the action, but perform the function of linking a subject to a state of being. It can also help other verbs be better. It can help them do their job. So we have a lot of information in the English language that is crammed into the verb tense. And we have, like, if we're going to take this one right here, conjunction, preposition, articles, even nouns. Nouns, very important, but there's not a lot of information about the sentence included in the noun. We don't change it all that often. It's either one or many. You know, how ridiculously simple of a system is, how many are there? There's one, there's many. That's like the simplest thing that you can, there's none. There's either none or one or many. But once you get into the pronouns, they have some possession issues and they change form, but you really, all this information is really all about the verbs. It tells you when something is happening. It also tells you how it's happening, as in, is it complete or still ongoing? Or was it completed by a certain point in time before something else started? There's all these things. So you can have two actions and you can put them into perspective as to which one was happening first, which one is done, which one is still affecting the present, and which one is going to affect the future, depending on the verb tense. So our verb to be is going to help other verbs do their jobs. So what's important with this one is, as we get into the more complicated verb tenses, such as by this time tomorrow, we either will or will have not, we will have either won or lost the battle with Napoleon by this time tomorrow. By this time tomorrow, we will have either won or lost the battle. It's all about that. The meaning of that sentence is all about the verb tenses. It's telling you what's possible. It's telling you, it's all in there. So when we say, what's the verb tense of that one? Will have, won or lost. The will and the have are part of the verb. And we want to identify the will and the have as part of the verb. It's a verb phrase, to use a fancy word. So we can call these helper verbs, helping verbs, or we can call them auxiliary verbs. If you are fond of Latin, you can call them auxiliary, but I'm going to call them helping because it's easier to remember. But if we go down to action verb, linking verb, so we have the action verb and the linking verb, and then we also have this guy right here. So we've already focused on this one. When you use be in a sentence, it's going to either be or it's going to be is, am, are, was, were, has, and been. Being, been. Okay, helping verbs. So you can either use this be verb on its own as a linking verb, or you can say Brian is eating a pizza. Very, very different than Brian is a pizza lover, or rather Brian is a pizza. These, if you say, in this case, I want you to identify the entire verb as these several words acting as one unit. So there's a lot of helping verbs. There are 23, in fact, if you use all the different conjugations. One hint is that there might be one of these endings on them, ed or ing. If you want to know a little bit more about those endings, I'll leave it up to you to talk about those. Those are called participles. And you don't have to know the specifics about gerunds and participles. I just kind of want you to know that ing on the end of a verb like jump or eat, or ed like jump. Yesterday I jumped. And then sometimes you have an irregular verb that doesn't follow these same ones and say, yesterday I ate a pizza. You didn't eaten a pizza or eated a pizza yesterday. Maybe you did, I don't know. So the helping verb is either going to be or have is another big one that you add in. And when you add have to eaten to any verb, then it's part of the verb. So you can have a Ferrari, right? Like I do, I have a Ferrari, but that's different than what we're talking about right now. If you use it, so with verbs, especially all these words, you have to look at the functionality. You can't memorize what the verb is and then have it be that thing. You can only do that with certain parts of speech, such as conjunctions. And is never going to be anything other than a conjunction. A, and the. A, and the are never going to be anything other than articles. However, have can change what part of speech it is depending on its usage. So I have a Ferrari, it means I possess a Ferrari. So that means that not only am I rich, but I have an action verb to express that richness. My status is expressed through an action verb. But I have driven a Ferrari. Very, very different statement, right? Put those two verbs together, identify it as the complete verb, and now have is part of, it's acting as a helping verb, part of the drive. And so it's the verb tense that is indicating the meaning of the sentence. Here's the sing-along. You can try it on your own to the tune of Jingle Bells. I won't do it for you. But if you say all of these words, helping verbs, there are 23. Am, is, are, was and were, being, been, and be, have, has, had, do, does, did, will, would, shall, and should. There are 5 more helping verbs: may, might, must, can, could. You can sing it on your own. It's a lot of fun. I suggest trying it when the camera's off. But this is it. And you'll notice that this first line right here is the one that we've already gone over. It's the be verb. All of the forms of to be. Then all the forms of has or have, would, shall, should, may, might, must, can, could. Those are the ones that you gotta also, so I may have driven a Ferrari. It's all part of the verb. May have driven. I can play the piano. Can play. That's your verb. So as long as you're looking at this, what I'm going to ask you for with your sentences is that we have a strong subject-verb connection. So I'm harping on this and kind of spending a lot of time on this because when we talk about verbs and any problems with them, I want you to be able to identify the entire verb, all of the things that could be the verb, all of the things that are modifying the verb, which are not the verb. But if it's helping the verb with an actual meaning, then it's a helping verb. If it's modifying the verb, as in she ran quickly, you could take the quickly out of it, she ran, and you haven't changed the essential meaning of the sentence. That's why the ly words, in this case, it's a modifier called an adverb. That's why that's different than part of the conjugation. The conjugation is going to give you essential meaning. And if you take it out, like I'm just going to take out the have, that, or take out the, take out one of these parts of the verb, I driven a Ferrari, you don't have a sentence there. That's not a thing. But you could take out quickly or quietly or considerately. You could take out any of these modifiers. How did they do something? Slowly. You can take that out and you still have a sentence that makes sense. And it means pretty much the same thing. It's just not as much detail. So I'm not talking about if it provides any detail. I'm talking about one of those essential things that these sentences with the different helping verbs have completely different meanings. So let me field a question or two right now, or at least give me a thumbs up if we're getting stuff. How are we feeling? That's no problem, right? Quick review. That's excellent. Tyler, are you coming at us from the Joe Rogan podcast today? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I actually am.
Well, congratulations. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal.
Tell Joe Rogan I said hi, will you?
Yeah. Tell him he hasn't followed up with me about that aliens in the Amazon thing yet. This is great. So I hope you will have more fun with your backgrounds than I'm able to have. I just have the stodgy, I look like I read background. I haven't read most of these books. They're just there for show. I got them on discount. So, they sell them by the foot, at library sales. So I just stock up. But it's important to present oneself. Yes? Good. So let's get back to the Joe Rogan MMA show. Continuing, any questions about verb, tenses, helping verbs? Helping verbs are part of the verb. They don't modify the verb. They're part of the verb. Okay. Sounds great. All right, let's do a little bit of this. No problem, Brady. Coming back here, if you can, recover from a Wi-Fi crash.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi crashed for about maybe 5 minutes or so.
Oh, no worries.
Happens
All
every
of that
once in a while.
essential, important information I'm going to put up on the web anyway, just right under the, as my podcast. Maybe next week we'll have Jordan Peterson on the show and we'll have some fun with him. Let's do this. That's the new essential part of the grammar essentials presentation. I'll probably add a little bit more to that, but I want to bring you to the worksheet if there aren't any questions on that. We'll go to worksheet number 2 now. Let's take a look. And I haven't graded these yet. I just kind of expect you to submit them. You can submit them if you haven't, this afternoon. That would be good. But let's take a look at a couple of things. And so the apostrophes, I spent a little quality time with apostrophes yesterday. And I think I learned a few better ways to present the information a little bit more simply. And so I just deleted the worksheet that you downloaded previously for worksheet number 2. And what I did was I reorganized the informational material and the links just a little bit. But the questions are exactly the same. So you're still done with it. It's still the same worksheet. It's just that if you want to download the new one to look at any of the rules or review anything, there'll be a slightly clearer explanations there. So let's go there now. And what did I do? Where was that? Intro, conclusions, grammar, just go, nope, pages. All right, I got to go to, yep. I got to open up Brightspace. All right, that's where I put that. If anything is too small on the screen or whatever, let me know and we can bump it up just a little bit. But I think this should be all right. So basically, there's probably one thing above all to keep in mind with apostrophes. Before we kind of get to the specific questions, I want you to right now think of the question that you're going to ask. Number 23, number 26, think of something specific, because I want to actually not just answer number 23 or whatever. I'd like you to ask me something specific about it. Is it this or is it that? I see it could be this, it could be that. Which one's better? Ask me something like that. And get ready to do that, because I'm going to ask you to ask me at the end of all this. There is the primary rule with the apostrophe is let speech be your guide. How is it pronounced? So you could say, what do you call the axle on a bus as opposed to an axle on a car? That's a car axle. That's a bus axle, right? There's no extra ES on the end. But take a look at this one. I'm looking at this particular bus's axle and it's broken. We said the buses. So with the apostrophe S, as in possessive, it's, you know, because that's not the same thing as this kind of axle is called a bus axle. Maybe you'd say bus's axle, but you might say bus axle. But that's really more of a descriptor, right? You're not talking about this one belongs to that one. So let's talk specifically about this bus has an axle. It's this bus's axle, which is broken. So in that case, you're going to definitely, even though the singular noun that ends with an S here already got an S there, you're going to add another apostrophe and another S. Here's the most extreme example in the history of the world. 3 S's in a row. Correct. Because Jess has a hat, yes, but that's Jess's hat. Even though it's a singular noun, it ends with an S, and there's already 2 S's there, don't worry about it. Put an apostrophe S. You got 3 S's in a row. It's no big deal. You can do Texas style fajitas, but these are Texas's best fajitas. Let pronunciation be your guide. So this is what we're looking at. Is the noun singular or plural? Does it already end with an S? Let's leave Mr. Jones and the Joneses for just a moment. If you have a plural noun that ends with an S, you don't add an additional S. You just add an apostrophe after it. So in this case, let's look at these guys before we get to the Joneses. We have a plural noun, dogs, and the favorite park is a possessive of theirs. The tale, the story belongs to the wives, plural. So there should be no, well, is it 1 dog or it could be 2 dogs or whatever. Like with these ones, it's super clear because there's 1 wife and 2 wives. There's 1 wolf and 2 wolves. So we know it's a plural number. We know it's a plural, and it ends with an S. You just put the apostrophe on the S. You might say the wolves' den. I don't think so. It's the wolves' den. So once again, even though this is a rule, let pronunciation be your guide. So in this case of the Jones, I just put this on here for fun because it's like the lamest example that all English teachers spend way too much time on. And this was actually a pretty good post that I found discussing the strange case of the Joneses. But if you had to look at this, right, you got a holiday card from the Joneses. Look at your options here. A, B, C, D, and E. It's like, ouch, right? Is the Jones, how many Jones are there? There's Tom Jones, right? And what about his whole family? They are the, say it out loud. They're the Joneses. That's how we say it. It's like a whole bunch of Tom Jones's relatives. It's a bunch of, we say the Joneses. So it's a plural that ends with an S. So what do you think? What do you think? A, B, C, D, or E? You can cheat.
C.
What's that?
C.
C, because it's not possessive, right?
Oh, no. We're going to go possessive. If you want to make it possessive, like it's Jones's house. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's easy. So yes, you
Wouldn't
are
it just
correct.
be A?
Well, Jones. It is, but how many Jones is that? If we started there, if we just took this part off, right? You can say it's Tom Jones, but then we have to go plural after that. It's the whole Jones's family. So this S means possessive, not plural. That means the hat belong is Tom Jones's. That's that one, singular Jones. This is plural Jones. This is plural possessive Jones. So plural Jones means these are the Joneses, meet them, right? This is Tom Jones's hat. This is the Joneses family house. Simple, right? We actually didn't invent any new rules or break any new rules. You do not have to spend a lot of time with this. That particular, web page. I just wanted to put that for you, put it there because it's very confusing. And if you can get a handle on that, you're probably not going to have a problem with anything ever as far as apostrophes are concerned. I can't help you with the rest of life, but I can certainly help you with apostrophes. So let's go back. I'm going to stop here for a second. Did the last highlighted ones make sense? Give me a visual thumbs up any way possible, or auditory, don't worry about it. Good thumbs up? Okay. Turner, Brady, Sam, you guys all there? I see him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's how you do. You essentially let pronunciation be your guide, but that was a good point that somebody brought up. I didn't see that before. I didn't even think about it really, that there is Jones, and you can have a singular Jones and then an apostrophe S after that. But remember, singular Jones, plural Joneses. So when you add the apostrophe S after Jones, it's just the one guy. It's Tom. It's Tom, and now it's possessive because of the apostrophe S. An apostrophe S does not give you a plural. It gives you a possessive with one exception. Right? An apostrophe S does not give you a plural number. A straightforward just add an S on the end gives you a plural number. An apostrophe S makes it possessive. Except, ready for the exception? Okay, let's go back. Screen share. Except, I guess this is probably a good idea to just go to the exception right here. There was a question. I didn't even put it down here. It's just this one. It's just, let's look at number 10 because it's number 10. If we're looking at number 10 on our sheet here, these two things, these 7s and 2s, you're talking about these things, you can just add a regular old S, just like normal, even though it's like a 1-digit thing, right? Or if it's a capital letter, you can kind of sometimes get away with it. For lowercase, and you want to make it just plural. We're not even talking about possessive, but you know how you roll your R's in Spanish, you say r, you know, if there's two R's in a row. Here, roll your R's. That's unreadable, right? Roll your R's. No, it doesn't make any sense. So for the sake of clarity, and this is just because the way that we read it, all the newspaper people and all of the magazine people and all of the English teachers have gotten together at various conferences over the years and just decided that whenever you even read the New York Times or Newsweek or Atlantic Monthly, you're going to see, if you were talking about a lowercase letter, you're going to see it with an apostrophe S, not to indicate possession in this case, but to indicate plural, because it's just too hard to read the other way. So sometimes we have to kind of make exceptions for these things because my eyes look at that and they are confused. So that's why we'll do that, even though it breaks the rule that I just told you could pretty much always count on, which is apostrophe S does not indicate plurals, it indicates possession. Here it actually just indicates a plural. There's a plural number of the letter R. So you only do it if you need to. So here, this pretty much makes sense. You can totally do that. Now this is very different than, I'm talking about, if you do that one, I have two cars. Any number under 100, really it's under 20, but I like to use the old school way, is under 100. You just spell it out. Let's say we're playing cards. Maybe? What do you think? You know, there's one thing that you can't do. That's rough right there. So in this case, you might have to make an exception to the spelling out your words, or sorry, spelling out your numbers under 20, because that is readable. That's readable. So it's the same as over here. You have twos, but you have to have a very specific reason to use a digit in the middle of the sentence, like rather than spelling it out like that, because otherwise things get confusing. How about some questions on that particular issue of that particular kind of thing? What do you think? Does that make sense? This is the kind of thing also that you can look up. However, it's explained so poorly on the internet that it might take you longer to just actually find a real answer than it would to just kind of try to remember the rule. First, pronunciation will be your guide. And if that's not going to help you, if pronunciation doesn't apply to this particular situation, look at the readability of the eyeball on it. If the eyeball can look at it and see that it makes sense, then great. You know, like when we first started the English language, sentences looked like here, number 9. There were no spaces back in like 700, 800, 9, well, that's a little earlier, but back in, let's say 1000, what we would consider like pre-old English, that's how you wrote sentences out. And that's just not gonna work, right? So it didn't take them long to figure out that they need to put spaces in between words. Her, yeah, that's it. I know what the sentence says and I still can't do it. Yeah, there we go. Oof, that was rough. So let your ears be the guide, and if that fails you, let your eyes be the guide. Any questions? Okay, why don't you ask me a specific question about a specific specific one of these exercises, please? I will have to do it verbally. We're screen sharing.
What about the word it's versus possessive or plural? Is there a
did you have one in mind, or just in general?
No, isn't that like an irregularity? Like it's not what you would think it is. I forget exactly the rule on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's not irregular because you can do this. The second function of an apostrophe is to take the place of letters during a contraction, right? So when you have one of these, like an I have, and you can pretty much put that into, now in that case, here, it'll change the capital, right? Boom. Take out these two letters, replace them with the apostrophe, and that's what you've got. You've got the contraction. What do you get? Exactly, right? So, whoops, that's not really, actually, I think I was writing donut subconsciously. That's a good idea. So with its, that's what it is, right? That is correct. So remember, we have two different functions of the apostrophe. We have the possessive function, and then we have this other function, which is simply to replace letters that you've taken out in a contraction. So when we say her book, now what's funny about this one here? Because we have, come on now. And can everybody see all that stuff? Give me a verbal yes.
Yup.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so with this guy right here, here we have a possessive apostrophe, and we take the possessive apostrophe out when we use the possessive pronoun, because the possessive pronoun is already possessive. So that will go back to, that's the one really important thing that you have to remember, that's pretty much under no circumstances are you going to say it's hers book. You can say it's her book, it's Jill's book, apostrophe S possessive, or you can say the book is hers. But in these two cases, this one and this one, the word itself has no other purpose than being possessive. So you don't have to add anything to it to make it possessive. You don't need any of this stuff. You don't need any of this. Just don't need it. That's what this is. That's wrong. I'm trying to think of a possessive use. Can we think of a possessive? Somebody give me an example of a possessive use of its. I just can't think of a thing right now for some reason.
It's color.
Once more?
It's color.
Ah, yes. The color of the car. Its color is red. So that's a sentence, right? So you can clearly see that if you were to basically go up here and take this approach to it to test it out, it is color is red. That's what the apostrophe S will be with the its. It doesn't make any sense. It is color is red. Its color is red. That's how you can tell it's possessive and not this one. It's going to be, that's why these are separate words. So they're not interchangeable that way. You basically just have to figure out which one you're talking about. Is it a contraction? In that case, use the apostrophe S. Is it a possession? In that case, use the word that's already possessive. There's a whole bunch of these ones. Ours, yours, theirs. It's theirs. You just say theirs. You don't need anything else. So these are what I was going to get to as, like, I'll probably put a link to possessive pronouns. Let me do that. I'm going to write that down right now, make a list of the things that I'm going to take care of after class, and I'm going to add possessive pronouns to the grammar fundamentals list. So the next time that you open grammar fundamentals with all this explanation, you'll have a big old list of them so you can just see them. So you don't have to memorize them. It's just that you got to recognize them when you see them, because it's important to make sure that you do not have any apostrophes there for the words that are already possessive. And it's a very limited number of words that exist that don't have them. Good. Any other questions? Any other questions about, let's try a different question. Can somebody point to one that they'd like to kind of go over here?
Can you go over the whom?
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Who, whom?
Can you go
right?
over the whom and whom's ones? Yep. I think they're like the last two.
Where? Yeah, which ones are they?
The last two questions.
Keep going down.
John. Oh, down here. Okay, good. So anything with apostrophes before we leave apostrophes for the rest of our lives. Let's stay with apostrophes for just one more minute, and then we'll get to the who, whom's. Is that good? So number 8 makes sense. Is this a contraction or is it possessive? It's a contraction. It is important that the kids learn, that the kitten learns. So you got to put that in there. Okay, well, we're done with apostrophes then. I'm going to give a 5-second pause here for anybody to chime in there before we move on. Okay, I'll take a look at those. Let's go to accept. So this one, I found a great 2-minute explanation. Well, actually, it was like a really long one. One of the things that I added to the grammar fundamentals was linked to a Khan Academy grammar lesson. I didn't know they had grammar lessons, but I found some yesterday. I knew they had math lessons, and I've used those before when I forgot how to long divide and I wanted to help my niece do her homework. I couldn't remember. So they were great. So they actually explained, and this was kind of a great explanation of the who, whom thing. It has to do with something being a subject or an object. And you can say all of this kind of stuff like, who is that for? Who is that for? Think about that sentence now. Now, you may have had an English teacher in the past say, for whom is that? You know, like for whom is that? And you have to change the sentence to make it for whom, because you don't want to end the sentence on for. But basically, you don't have to do that anymore. And there's a great kind of explanation. We used to have kind of a 50-50 split between whether you'd use who or whether you'd use whom. For this many instances, you'd use who, and for these other circumstances, you'd use whom. However, as the English language is changing, who is being used more and more and taking up the real estate that whom used to occupy. And in another 60 years, according to the Khan Academy, we're not even going to have whom in the English language. It's going to be antiquated the way that we now have, like when you read Shakespeare and they say ye all beware. What does ye mean? It means you, plural. It really means y'all. That's our really you plural in English, but we don't use ye anymore. We just say you. You all should be aware. You beware. That means everybody, right? So that's going that way. The only rule to remember with the who, whom is answer the question and answer it even if it fits or not, because with this one's easy. Plug in him. If it ends with an M on the answer, then it's whom. Because in technical terms, what this means is whom can never be a subject. It can only be an object. So who or whom is going to wear this awful color coat? Well, let's plug him in there and see if that works. Him is going to wear this awful colored coat. Well, the M doesn't sound good, so don't use it here. It's really who. Because the answer to this question is he is. Who is going to wear this awful colored coat? He is going to wear this awful colored coat. He makes sense there. And the he is tied with the who, and the him is tied with the whom. Unfortunately, that doesn't work with him and her, because this needs to be an M at the end to just make it easy to remember. So don't just do it with any pronoun. Just do it with he and him for simplicity's sake, because he and him actually work. So who or whom is this awful coat for? What's the answer? Can you answer that in one word? It's for
Him.
him. So that's when you use the whom. Now you don't, if you mess this part up, it's not that big of a deal, but that's the right way to do it. That's still technically the way it's going to go. At least hopefully by the time you guys are collecting Social Security, like that's going to be there. But when you're that old, hopefully we'll no longer use this word in the English language. But until then, for your entire working careers, you're going to have to put up with it just a little bit longer. But it's good. But that's the real thing. It's either a subject, as in the subject of a sentence, John is going to wear the coat, or he is going to wear the coat. Or it's in this particular case, the object. What are you going to wear? It, the coat. So he is going to invite, let's say, Jack and Jill. Jack is going to invite Jill. So now invite, who receives the action of invite? Is it Jack or Jill? It's Jill, right?
Jill.
Yeah, because Jack did the inviting. He's the one who's doing the acting. He doesn't receive the action of the verb. It's the same thing as I threw a baseball. Well, the baseball didn't throw anything. I'm the one who threw it. The baseball receives the action of the throw. So in that case, that's what I mean when I say subject and object. What's the subject of the sentence? That's the subject-verb connection. I throw, Jack invites. And then the object is whatever receives that. So that's a little more technical. That's the kind of longer explanation. But it's basically all works if you say, he is the subject of a sentence. He is president. That's good, right? But him doesn't work. Him is president. So that's why you can't say whom can never be a subject. He and whom are intimately connected that way. Now, do you have any specific questions about the whom controversy? I'll just leave a brief pause here.
So you're saying whom is going to be non-existent in the near future?
Well, that's what Khan Academy says. Near future meaning like 60 or 80 years. It's going to take your entire lifetime for something like this. Languages change, and they change very rapidly, but they're not going to change so much. But if you compare language from 40 years ago to now, you'll notice a couple of differences. Yeah, but I mean, that's it. I mean, language changes all over. I mean, you guys had to read Shakespeare at some point, right? There's just some different words in there, and we simply do not use them anymore. Wherefore art thou Romeo? It doesn't mean where are you, Romeo? It means why. Why is your damn name Romeo? Why couldn't you just be named something else so that we could go on a date? That's what wherefore means. It means why. But you can't say that anymore. It's gone. The language has changed. It took 100 years. By the 100 years after Shakespeare's death, they don't use wherefore anymore. So this just happens. And it's a natural thing for all languages to happen. One of the things that makes English so confusing is that we're a Germanic language. And then we had this kind of run-in with the French where we took them over for a while. And, you remember the whole Battle of Hastings, 1066? Yeah, you got some Nordic roots, you got some Germanic roots, and then you have all this Latin influence from the French later on. And then, so we follow the rules depending, sometimes on the German rules and the German roots, and sometimes from the Latin influence from the other languages that we've started to incorporate words from. And that's why there's kind of different things and different ways to do it. And that's what makes it such a difficult language to master for non-native speakers of English. It's one of the most confusing languages you can study because there's 10 different ways to do everything.
So if you were to use Old English in your writing, would it be considered a different style or would it be grammatically incorrect?
Well, you'd have to be doing something. So if you were to use Old English, what you would have to be doing is writing a period piece, and then you'd have to study the grammar of when it was used at that time. So there's a great resource. If that's actually a question that interests you, you are going to love the Oxford English Dictionary, because when you look up a word, it gives you where it's from, how it was used over the centuries, and which century it changed usage. Like, look up, faggot is a bundle of sticks. And they'll go through the whole etymology, and eventually they'll say, oh, it changed spelling at this point, and then it became a derogatory insult. And it's just like, it's just weird. It's so crazy. But these things will go back to, well, it has a Germanic root, and it was first used in Chaucer. Here's an example. It's great. So English majors just go crazy for this stuff. And they're always talking about how these multiple meanings of words change over the courses of centuries and things along those lines. And some are replaced and some are called archaic. So ye, like ye old candy shop, that means this candy shop's all for all y'all. It's just an antiquated, oh, that's the word we would use, it's antiquated usage. No longer used. So if you use it today, you have to be, like, you can open up a store and call it the ye old candy shop, but you're using an antiquated term for effect because you want it to be all old-timey. So that's the effect that you're going for. If you did it and didn't know that we don't use that anymore, then you've got a problem. That's kind of where it comes in. If somebody was walking around and calling everybody, instead of y'all, they said ye, we wouldn't know what they're talking about, and we would just think they're crazy. So you don't want anybody to think you're crazy. How's that?
It's a solid explanation.
Nice. Well, I mean, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, as a composition class, we don't get to talk about kind of the fun stuff. But I mean, as English majors, we get to talk about all this fun stuff because it matters when you're trying to express yourself and what your intention as a writer, when you're trying to write fiction, a creative work, or a creative essay of some sort, that we can kind of get into these. Just language is a fascinating thing. And there are many lifetimes of information to learn just about one language, the English language. And, you know, so we get a little bit more time to explore these kinds of things. And they are really fun when you take a Shakespeare course or something like that, to really kind of look at all this stuff and just kind of realize how witty and how absurd and how bawdy and just outright fun Shakespeare is after you get past a couple of the difficult things where you just got to learn a couple of new, wherefore means why, and ye means you plural, things along those lines. It's a lot of fun, but we just don't, unfortunately, have a lot of time to go over fun stuff. But, well, speaking a little.
Could we briefly go over affect versus effect?
Yes.
That has always bugged me, and I don't know. It's
No
a tough one.
No worries. Let's just do two examples. Let me see. Let me find it here. It was. Are you good, actually, Eli, on accept and accept? Is that good? Okay. Good. So affect is a verb. Effect is a noun. So are you talking about the result of something that stands as an idea, or are you talking about an action? So if you say, I ate a pizza, you could say that you're clearly showing an action, or you could talk about hunger as a noun, right? So that's why you're going to say hunger drives me to eat pizzas. So now you're talking about a noun, which is hunger. So that's kind of the difference. If you're talking about the idea as a thing, so wars affect everybody. Do wars do an action? That's your affect. Wars affect the same way as, but they're destructive. Let's say, replace it with a noun. How about their destructive tendencies? They're destructive. If you can replace it with a noun, they're destructive results, right? That's a noun right there. So then you're going to use the noun form, which is effect with an E. There's your A, there's your E. So television has a strong, is that, where's our verb? Look at that, we've already got a verb right there, so we don't need to have another verb, so it's going to be the other one. So you tell me.
In this case, it would be the noun, which would be effect.
Exactly.
With an E.
Exactly. Yep. Now, here's something interesting. If you remember our Jingle Bells 23 word helping verb song, you'll notice that can is a helping verb. So that means, there's probably going to be a verb here. So my mood can, verb, affect my thinking. You wouldn't put a noun, it can noun. I mean, replace another noun with that. So my mood can sway my thinking. My mood can change my thinking. Replace that and with any other verb, and you're going to get like okay, that works. Replace it with a noun like my mood can apple my thinking. My mood can justice my thinking. Nope, doesn't work. But you can kind of like, to figure out what a part of speech is, you can play games like that. You know, it doesn't work all the time. I mean, but I think it works enough of the time so that when you get into these situations where you really got to decide, the difference between a noun and a verb is important, but it's not that obvious. I mean, usually you don't get jump mixed up with apple. That's a verb and a noun, right? So it's not a problem. You don't really have to play that game. But here, you definitely kind of have to play that game. So here, we're definitely calling for which? A noun or a verb? There's your key. A helper, verb. So that's it. Affect with an A is the verb. Were there any that were particularly sticky down here? Let's go over some specific ones rather than just kind of going from top.
There was a couple that like used past tense.
Okay.
And like the past tense of effect was kind of weird.
Let's
I think they
try.
used it as like an adjective, right?
Let's try and find it.
Yeah, I think it's
Oh,
number
maybe
12.
12?
Yeah.
Okay. He is just trying to seem cool. His indifference is completely, oh, okay. This is a good one. This is a good one. So here's one thing. This is kind of a special usage. And this is probably the only kind of special use that you would ever have to kind of consider with these two worlds. For some reason, and I forgot why, you don't affect with an E a state of being. You affect with an A state of being, as in, I'm going, your accent is affected. Your coolness is affected. That's an affectation, they call it. So that just means that's an actual different meaning of the word. Effect
So it changes from.
Yeah, effect means result. But if you look affect up in the dictionary, it's going to have another definition, which means another definition completely. What's a word with two completely different definitions that you can think of off the top of your head? As an example, there are many words, I just can't think of any right now, that have, when you look them up in the dictionary, it says, well, definition number one is this, and a completely other definition is this. Can anybody think of one? Or do I have to go to I can go to a dictionary.
Break and break.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take a break is a totally different meaning of the word I broke my leg. It's the same word, it's still break. Different forms of the verb break, right? But it's not, in one sense, it's used as a noun, and that same word can change to a verb. So in this case, when we're talking about pretending to be something that you're not, that's only connected with the word affect with an A. So you can
changes
say,
from being a verb to an adjective.
let's see, completely affected. He is infected. Yeah, adjective, maybe it's basically a modifier. Not, okay. Yeah, exactly. Just modifier is good enough. It's actually a specific kind of thing. But what you can say is that affect means pretend. And if you're using it in the sense of pretend, then you can say affected accent. He is, your coolness is affected. And those are what you'll pretty much always see is that ED form. Or you would never ask anybody, can you affect an English accent? because it's pretending in a derogatory way. It's a specific kind of pretending. It's not a fun way. It's calling somebody out for being phony is what it is. So you really won't see it like this. You'll totally see it like this. That thing that they're doing is affected. I don't believe that they're actually sorry. They're pretending and being phony about it. And that's just a specific meaning of the word. So you'll never have to worry about that sense of the word of being called out for being phony in a pretend sort of way as being this one. Never have to worry about it. It's just always affected. Good for that one?
Really quickly, can we go over 8?
Yeah.
The patient shows normal blank and appears to be, so
in that case,
I'm struggling because it's normal, which would imply that you then have a noun after that.
So, well, here's the thing. So here is another case of the exact same. So remember that we're talking about, we can change speech depending. So this is working. I'm going to give this rule a 90%. It works 90% of the time. The other 10%, let's amend this right now, and this will explain it. It's the same issue we were talking about before. Something, I guess, probably the best explanation of affect with an A, as in this second meaning, something to do with appearance is affect. Effect doesn't have anything to do with appearance as another meaning of it. Effect, this one here, you don't really, it doesn't have that meaning attached to it. So there's no way that you can change this word or the part of speech or whatever to mean something that it just doesn't mean. The way that break means a period of rest in between work. So you can break your leg. What else can you do to your leg? You can break your leg, you can injure your leg, right? But you can't take an injury for 10 minutes for coffee, right? They're just different words. This is exactly the same thing. This definition of having to do with appearance is specifically tied to this word, and it's not tied to this word. So since this has to do with how's the patient doing? Well, he looks good. He shows normal affect, meaning disposition, mood, appearance. Is that cleared up at all? Eli, can you give me a verbal? We're screen sharing, so you gotta chime in there. Does that clear it up, or should I try that again? No worries. Okay, if there are any other questions about this one, affect and effect, give me an answer. Anybody? Number 10. Supply and demand have a direct on the prices of commodities.
Effect.
Effect with an E. Yes. And say it like that. Effect with an E or affect with an A.
Dope.
Try this one. The blank of the speech was visible on the faces of the sleeping audience.
The effect
With an
E.
Good. It's a noun. It's the blank of the speech. That's definitely a noun. He's trying to seem cool. His indifference is completely, we went after that one. Just to refresh my memory.
Affected with an A.
With an A, yeah. That means having to do with appearance and pretending to appear a certain way. So I would say if we were to subdivide this 10%, I would say 90% of the time, what it means is a phony appearance. You're acting a certain way to get a certain effect. You're pretending to cry, like, people that can cry on cue. That's crazy, right? So maybe they actually don't feel that bad, but they're going to try and make everybody feel sorry for them. That's 90% of this 10%. The other 10% of that would be just the way you look. You could do the whole appearance thing without having that negative phony connotation, but it's pretty rare. And to tell you the truth, this is hard. This is basically as hard as it will ever, not this one, sorry. It's the doctor, the patient. This is as hard as it will ever get. And that's that. I think that's good for now. I think we should go to, I can look over these unless you have any specific questions about the homonyms. The homonyms can be a little tricky, right? I think this one is much more trickier than just being able to look up a word in the dictionary for proper spelling. So can somebody direct me toward one that they'd like to go over? This one's an original. I made that one up, and this one too. Cats. I didn't take those from books. This one too. These are great. I made these up. I'm gonna write a text with myself. Okay, in that case, let's do this. For homework, I'll look at these. I'd like you to revisit the apostrophe rules and these things that are kind of hard to kind of remember. I want you to actually review them. Possibly even start a card or two in a general category in your new Anki system. Maybe. I'm reaching for the stars here, I know. But that would be incredible if you were to do that. And then I would also like you to fix in the next 2 days before Thursday, I would like you to, let's go ahead and stop sharing here. Okay, before Thursday, I'd also like you to try to solve through contact with me, emailing back and forth, whatever. Let's solve all of the technical issues that we have for either submitting Microsoft Word documents or Zoom, videos. We got to get all that stuff down so that we can move on and not have to, oh, there we go. That means I got an email in. Not have to deal with technical problems as we go farther along. So what I'd like to, finish on is you don't have any real homework other than look at this stuff, look at your verbs, go ahead and review the grammar basics, the grammar essentials PowerPoint. And I will see you on Thursday with a new worksheet with lots of original exercises that have to do with questions about me. I'll just be like, hey, your professor said this, what did they say? And that'll be your test. Good stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Professor Starr.
My pleasure. I'm going to
Thanks,
sign off.
Professor.
I'm going to stay on, but you guys can feel free to sign off right now. Thank you very much, and I'll stick around here to answer any specific questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Awesome. Joseph, you still here? Okay. So JC, refresh my memory. We emailed back and forth a little bit, right? About
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Now, what was the technical issue again? Could you refresh my memory?
So the issue was that I had trouble uploading my MP4 to Brightspace.
Okay. Did you make an attempt to like
I put
share
it in
it as a drive or something?
Yeah,
like
I
that?
put it in my Google Drive. I publicly shared it, and then I embedded the link into.
Yeah,
a Word doc.
unfortunately, it's a great idea, and I tried that last semester, and I never got it to work.
Oh,
So
shoot.
basically, it's too slow of a process to download to be effective. So
Okay.
after about 10 minutes of it just kind of ramping up and maybe thinking about finishing the download or trying to stream that down, I just gave up.
Okay.
But when we get it in on Brightspace, I can have them all kind of condensed to a zip file, and then I can bring them all in and just watch them, right?
Yeah.
So okay, tell me what technology you used. Did you do it on your phone?
No, I'm on my laptop. And I recorded it on my laptop too.
What software did you use on your laptop?
I think I just used my regular camera to record it, and then I used a something online to convert it to an MP4.
Let's skip the process, go directly to Zoom, and just record on Zoom. Because you have an account there, you can do all the necessary things. So even if you have to put up a little YouTube how to make a video recording on Zoom,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can just start a chat with nobody in it and press record right there in
All
the
right.
window. That's pretty much, I think that's exactly how we're doing it anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And so I know that that will work because that's going to immediately convert it anyway into an MP4, into the format that you already need.
Yeah. The issue was that when I was trying to turn it in via Brightspace, it was already an MP4 file, and then I could, you know how, I don't know if you know a lot about how Brightspace works, but I was trying to,
Yeah.
What happened? So here, I'm going to try it again right now.
Okay.
So I go to add a file under the submit thing.
Yeah.
And then it says upload a file here. So I could click on that.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to where I have it stored. I would open the MP4.
Oh, so
here,
there
actually,
you go. That's what you got to
share?
stop off right there. All you got to do is drag it from the, and drag it right in there.
Oh,
That's it. You don't have to open anything. Once you've opened it, you've exited out of that add a file function in the computer. So that's probably
interesting.
it. All you got to do is drag and drop. It's actually simpler than you think it is. Yeah. That's
okay.
it.
Yeah, that was what was tricking me because I was trying to upload it and then it just wasn't working. Here, I'll try that now.
So if it's already in an MP4, just drag it and drop it right now, and it'll probably go right in there.
Okay. All right, it's taking a second to upload.
Yeah, that's normal. It should be a little while because the file size, if it's an MP4, it's a compressed file, so the file size shouldn't be much of an issue.
Okay. It's like, yeah, it's almost done right now.
Perfect. So I'll take a look at it, and that would be just your process going forward. You can do what you did before, but just drag it and drop it. Good.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool, man.
Here,
Well, thanks. We'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll sign
I'll
off.
see you then.
Have a
All
good
right,
one,
thanks.
man. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Bye.